News that the FBI is reopening its probe into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. That development, of course, throwing the presidential race into turmoil, with the agency reportedly examining new emails discovered after it seized electronic devices belonging to Clinton aide Huma Abedin and her estranged husband, former New York Congressman Anthony Weiner, as part of a separate investigation. Hillary Clinton responded to the news late Friday and called on FBI Director James Comey to immediately release whatever information he has.
We are 11 days out from perhaps the most important national election of our lifetimes. Voting is already underway in our country. So the American people deserve to get the full and complete facts immediately. The director himself has said he doesn't know whether the emails referenced in his letter are significant or not. I'm confident, whatever they are, will not change the conclusion reached in July.
Joining the panel this week, Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger, columnist and Manhattan Institute senior fellow Jason Riley, editorial board member Joe Rago, and columnist Kim Strassel. So, Kim, FBI Director Comey told his agents this week in a memo that Fox News has obtained that he felt obliged as a public duty to release this information to Congress before the election. How do you read that?
Look, I mean, it's very hard to know what's going on here. You have to assume, given the upheaval that has attended this, and given that it was obvious it was going to cause a political firestorm, that there must be something there pertinent enough or concerning enough that he felt they did need to move ahead with this and tell Congress. But you also have to wonder if this isn't also maybe a little bit of a cover your backside effort by Mr. Comey, as details have come out about the first FBI probe and all of the incredible irregularities of it, and Congress now looking into that. He may have felt the need to cover his tracks, as it were, and make it look as though they really were being a little bit more thorough than it would seem they have been.
But, Kim, you know, the thing is, I sort of lean to the first one, because he's taking an enormous amount of abuse for this. So if this turns out to be nothing, if this turns out to be just, you know, about yoga and what do you do on Thursday night, I mean, he's going to be really under the hot seat.
Well, and look, Clinton's comments there, they are spin. We don't know. I mean, she's trying to make it sound as though he has no clue, it's unrelated. There is no way he would have made that announcement without having some good grounds for believing that whatever is on these electronic devices is an immediate bearing on the investigation they were doing.
And, Dan, what about that point, though, that Kim said? Maybe, you know, he was criticized, Comey was criticized, and we criticized him, too, for the conduct of his first investigation, which I thought was inadequate. Had irregularities that were really troubling. And Republicans had criticized him for that. Could this be saying, look, if you're going to investigate me next year, I got to make sure every little detail, no matter how large, gets that I show you that before the election I got it out there so I'm not accused of a cover-up?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, so much of this is conjecture, to be sure. But my conjecture would be that his decision to go do what he did in July was not popular throughout the FBI. He testified before Congress that the investigation, in his words, had been completed. Obviously, had not been completed. The investigative team that was covering this continued to work. They have obviously come up with something, and they must have gone in to Director Comey and put it on his desk and say, this is what we've got. We have to deal with this now. And I think the FBI is trying to protect its reputation, which has suffered grievous damage since Mr. Comey did that.
Yeah, it's not just that the result wasn't popular. How he handled the release of the result wasn't popular. Jim Comey's job is to conduct an investigation, then turn the results over to the Justice Department.
And they make
That's
the decision.
it.
Right.
He's not supposed to be giving us some running commentary, the public analysis of how he reached this decision. That was extraordinary behavior on the part of him. And now he wants to do this big, throw this bomb into the election, and then zip up and say, I can't say any more because of an ongoing investigation.
Well,
you can't have it both ways.
Okay, but on that point, Democrats, Secretary Clinton, but now they're lining up across all day today. Yeah. You know, every Democratic group and spokesman saying, Mr. Comey, you've got to tell us more. you've got to come clean here and tell us what's going on.
And we've seen the Justice Department distance themselves from Comey.
That's
with
right.
Loretta Lynch saying, I would not have gone public with this.
Number one, can Comey resist that and say nothing between now and the election? Because we realize they're not going to finish this investigation before the
I don't think he can, and I don't think he should.
So you think he should?
This close to the election, the voters of America have a right to know whether the person they're going to elect is going to enter office with an ongoing investigation.
I think you disagree with that, Dan.
Yeah, I think we'd set a very bad precedent. That effectively reduces the FBI to WikiLeaks. Just taking all this stuff they have before they've looked through it and throwing it out on the public like WikiLeaks does, that's not the way the FBI operates, and I don't think that's the sort of precedent that we want to establish for them.
Yeah.
They can't either. I mean, look, if there's classified information, and the question here is classified information, they can't just release all of this. I mean, they have to be careful with that, and that's going to take time to review. And I think I agree. I'm not sure I would just throw it all out there. You know, look, she made this. One thing we need to remember, there's only one person to blame for this entire explosion, and that is Hillary Clinton, who made her private email server in the first place.
Joe, the campaign, the Clinton campaign in its response, has really elevated this in importance. I mean, they're saying, they're accusing Comey of being politically motivated. They're saying you've got to come clean. They're rolling out spokesman after spokesman. Is that a political mistake, maybe, in elevating it? Would they have been smarter just to say, look, he exonerated me in July, and now this is a small detail. Let's not worry about it.
Right. I mean, they've been running all along with the exonerated detail. Hillary Clinton even mentioned in the debate, so there's a little bit of irony here. On the specific question
about the transparency point.
Right.
Yeah.
On the specific question, I think what happened is that they did a panel last night, and they said, here are a variety of responses to it, and ignoring it was inadequate.
You mean a voter panel?
A voter panel, excuse me.
Survey, yeah.
Did a quick overnight poll, and it's probably raised a lot of new doubts about her candidacy that she feels like she has to address politically.
And Trump clearly, Dan, believes this is a big assist to him. He's driving the corruption theme with it. But is there a danger here that he could overplay his hand? He said, look, he said today, for example, there are 33,000 emails that we haven't seen, and some of them may have been found here in this cache.
Yeah.
But we have no evidence of that.
Well, the phrase "could Donald Trump overplay his hand" is something to conjure with at any moment. But I don't think so. I think that this email server has always been her greatest vulnerability. It is the source of her credibility and trustworthiness problem. It dates back to March 2015 when it came out, and I think he's right to lean on her on this one.
Jason, you agree with that?
He can play that hand. I don't know if that's enough for him to make up the gap that she has right now, the lead that she has, which I believe is about 4 or 5 points nationally.
All right, we're going to talk about that right now. Thanks, Jason.